In the vast, untouched wilderness of Rocky Peak National Park, one mystery still haunts the region to this day. In 2003, Ranger Alexis Hart vanished during a routine patrol, riding her trusted horse, Shadow, through the thick, remote trails of the park. That day, the sun shone brightly and the air was crisp, perfect conditions for her journey. But when night fell and Alexis didn't return to base, search teams were immediately dispatched. Despite extensive efforts, no signs of Alexis were found. The mystery deepened when 5 years later, in 2008, the skeletal remains of her horse, Shadow, were discovered. But the haunting question remains: what happened to Ranger Alexis? Was her disappearance the result of an accident, or was something far darker lurking in the park's wilderness? Stay with us as we unravel the chilling mystery of the vanished ranger and the shocking discoveries that followed. Ranger Alexis Hart was a dedicated park ranger, known not only for her expertise in wildlife management, but also for her deep connection with the land she loved. At just 28, she had already made a name for herself at Rocky Peak National Park. Her colleagues respected her skills, and the locals knew her as someone who deeply cared for the preservation of the park's beauty. Alexis had grown up in a small town just outside the park, and her love for the outdoors had been cultivated from a young age. She was known for her adventurous spirit and often ventured into the park alone, guided by a sense of responsibility and an unwavering respect for the wilderness. Alexis was a highly trained ranger, experienced with everything from search and rescue missions to managing wildlife conflicts. But it wasn't just her technical expertise that made her a standout. It was her heart for the job. Her horse, Shadow, was her loyal companion, and the two had become inseparable. Together, they navigated the most dangerous trails in the park, from dense forests to the steepest ridgelines. But little did anyone know, their bond would become central to a mystery that would remain unsolved for years. It was the morning of July 12th, 2003, when Alexis left the ranger station for her daily patrol. The air was cool, the sun shining through the thick canopy above, casting speckled shadows on the forest floor. Alexis and Shadow were heading out to check the northern trails, an area known for its wildlife sightings. She checked in with base camp at 10 a.m., letting them know she was taking the usual route. "All good," she reported cheerfully over the radio. That was the last time anyone heard from her. As the hours passed and the sun began to dip below the horizon, Alexis was expected to return. When she didn't, her colleagues initiated a search. Rangers and volunteers combed the trails she had reported traveling, following the path she'd taken. But by dusk, there were no signs of Alexis or her horse. A helicopter was called in to help, but nothing turned up. The search would continue into the following days, but despite the huge effort, there was still no trace of Ranger Alexis Hart. Where had she gone? Why had she disappeared so suddenly, without a single sign of struggle or distress? The initial search was swift but thorough. Alexis's colleagues were convinced she had simply gotten lost in the dense forest or perhaps had taken a fall. The park was rugged, with dangerous ravines and steep cliffs, and it was easy to lose track of where you were. Search teams scoured the trails, looking for any sign of the young ranger. Shadow's hoofprints were found near a steep cliff, but the trail abruptly ended. There were no signs of struggle, no broken branches, no torn clothing, nothing that suggested Alexis had fallen or been injured. Her saddle was found, abandoned at the base of the cliff, as though it had been discarded in haste. But still, there was no sign of Alexis. Her radio remained silent, no tracks, no footprints. The more the search teams looked, the more questions arose. Why would Alexis abandon her horse? Was there foul play involved? The mystery deepened with each passing hour. As the search continued over the next several days, the team found nothing except eerie silence. As the days stretched into weeks, various theories began to emerge. Some believed that Alexis had fallen off her horse while navigating the dangerous terrain, injuring herself and being unable to make it back to camp. There were no signs of a struggle, no injuries to suggest an attack. But could an accident have occurred that left her stranded? Others speculated that Alexis had encountered a predator. Mountain lions were known to inhabit the park, and though no signs of a struggle had been found, some rangers wondered if Alexis might have been taken by one of these elusive animals. Still, the absence of blood or signs of a struggle left this theory inconclusive. Another more sinister theory began to take shape. Was it possible that Alexis had stumbled upon something she shouldn't have? Was someone or something waiting for her in the remote wilderness? These questions left the investigation in a state of confusion, with more theories than evidence. The park, once a symbol of peaceful solitude, now felt like an unknown realm hiding untold secrets. As the months passed, the investigation slowed, search efforts dwindled, and hope of finding Alexis alive began to fade. Despite the passage of time, a small group of local investigators continued to look for answers, not ready to give up. They pored over every detail, every possibility. Some began to believe Alexis had uncovered something during her patrol, perhaps a dangerous poaching ring or illegal logging activity taking place within the park. Had she discovered something criminal? Was that what led to her sudden disappearance? Rumors of an illegal operation being run in the park started circulating, and many wondered if someone involved in that operation had silenced Alexis to protect their secret. However, no evidence of illegal activities could be found, and with no concrete leads, the case was left to grow colder with each passing year. 5 years after Alexis vanished in 2008, a discovery was made that would shake the community once more. A group of hikers exploring a remote area deep within the park stumbled upon the skeletal remains of Shadow, Alexis's horse. The remains were found in a dense, nearly inaccessible section of the park, far from the trails where Shadow was last seen. The horse's bones were scattered, partially buried beneath thick foliage, but there were no signs of injury. The horse had clearly been abandoned, left to die alone in a wilderness that had claimed its rider. But why? If Alexis had been close by, why had Shadow been left behind? Could she have been too injured to make it back to camp, leaving her horse in a desperate attempt to seek help? Or was there something more to this story, something that hadn't been uncovered until now? The discovery of Shadow's remains brought new theories to the forefront. Some believed that Alexis had been injured during her patrol, and that she had made a decision to leave her horse behind, perhaps in an effort to reach safety or rescue. However, Shadow was a seasoned and reliable horse, used to navigating the most difficult trails. It seemed highly unlikely that Alexis would abandon her companion so abruptly, especially given their bond. Could there have been something else at play? Some speculated that Shadow had been abandoned by Alexis after she had encountered an assailant, or perhaps after she had realized that her survival was no longer possible. If Alexis had fallen or encountered danger, the thought of her leaving Shadow behind seemed incomprehensible. Could Shadow have died from starvation or exposure while waiting for its rider to return? Was it possible that the horse was left behind by someone else, someone who had intended to mislead the investigation? Following the discovery of Shadow's remains, authorities revisited the case, reopening the investigation that had gone cold. New search teams were deployed, and interviews with those who had worked alongside Alexis were conducted again. Over time, several strange details began to surface. Some rangers recalled hearing odd sounds in the distance during their own patrols, distant noises that couldn't be explained. Others spoke of strange sightings, figures moving in the trees at odd hours, figures that were never fully seen. The most intriguing lead came from a local trapper who was said to have been in the area around the time Alexis disappeared. The trapper was known for his rugged lifestyle, and his presence raised suspicions. He was eventually questioned, but the answers he provided were vague, and the investigators couldn't definitively link him to Alexis's disappearance. As the investigation continued, more questions emerged, and the mystery only deepened. Then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A woman named Nora, who had been hiking in the park on the same day Alexis went missing, came forward with a strange and unsettling account. She recalled seeing a tall, dark figure in the distance as she walked along a trail close to the northern border of the park. According to Nora, the man had been acting oddly, moving quickly, looking over his shoulder as if aware of being watched. Nora didn't initially think much of it, but in the years that followed, her memory of that encounter began to haunt her. Could this man have been involved in Alexis's disappearance? Nora's account led investigators to re-examine the timeline and events surrounding Alexis's disappearance. Could this mysterious figure, whom Nora had seen, have played a role in the Ranger's vanishing, or was it simply a coincidence, another piece of the puzzle that couldn't be solved? The investigation into the mysterious figure was expanded, and after further digging, authorities identified the man Nora had seen as Samuel Thorne, a local resident known for his reclusive lifestyle. Thorne had a criminal history that included burglary and theft, and he was known to frequent the park, often seen near the northern trails around the time Alexis disappeared. However, despite being questioned, Thorne's involvement in Alexis's disappearance could not be definitively proven. Authorities found no concrete evidence that he had harmed Alexis or that he had any direct link to the events of that fateful day. When investigators attempted to question him further, Thorne disappeared from the area, vanishing into the wilderness in a way that seemed eerily similar to Alexis's own disappearance. Had Samuel Thorne seen something he shouldn't have? Did he know more about the truth of Alexis's fate than he let on? Could he be hiding somewhere, waiting for the investigation to end, or was he just another shadow in the park? In 2010, 7 years after Alexis's disappearance, a new lead emerged. A ranger, while conducting a routine patrol, found a small, weathered notebook hidden in an abandoned cabin near the park's northern edge. The notebook contained cryptic notes, some of which seemed to match Alexis's handwriting. The notes referred to hidden caves in the park, places that were rarely visited and almost never documented. Were these places Alexis had been investigating before her disappearance? Some of the notes seemed to describe locations with odd symbols and hidden markings. Was Alexis in search of something unknown, something that someone wanted to keep secret? Could this discovery have been the key to unlocking the mystery? To this day, the mystery of Ranger Alexis Hart's disappearance remains unsolved. The trail has gone cold, and the final truth remains elusive. Alexis was a ranger who lived and breathed the wilderness, but the wilderness took her without leaving a trace. Could the missing notebook and the strange symbols she discovered have been a vital clue to the truth? Was Alexis taken because she uncovered a secret hidden deep within the park? Theories abound, but no one can say for certain what happened. As the years go by, the story of Alexis Hart and her vanishing into the heart of the wilderness still captivates the minds of those who hear it. Some believe the park still holds its secrets close, unwilling to reveal what truly happened. For Alexis's family and the community of Rocky Peak, the search for answers continues. What happened to Alexis, and who, if anyone, is responsible for her disappearance? The mystery lives on,